All right. So back at Hofstra on this first day of May, May Day, 2014, taking up the material that was written 10 years ago this day, and continuing on with Heraclitus. And so, just would want to note that I was on the bus this morning with my colleague from the Honors College, and apparently they have articulated the theme for the fall course that is a collective endeavor. So picking up on the idea of the learning community that I talked about from yesterday in my commentary, as well as having talked about, the theme is going to be, so in terms of the organization of the course, that is to say, picking up on the theme of learning together, and that thinking and learning come together as a always within a congregational community setting. And but then the theme for the course for next semester is friendship and love. So just perfect, right into, picking up right where I'm at, so to speak. All right, so on that point, let me go ahead and read what was written today, 10 years ago, the first day of May. The story of Heraclitus tells us something about the dwelling of the sage and draws us into an exploration of this dwelling as the path-breaking activity of thinking. The story, we said, revolves around fragment 119, Ethos, anthropoi, daimon. The usual translation, according to Heidegger, is, a man's character is his daimon. In trying to draw attention to the lost meaning of ethos, Heidegger cautions us from inheriting the translation of this important term as character. Ethos means abode, dwelling place, he tells us. The word names the open region in which man dwells. The open region of his abode allows what pertains to man's essence, and what is thus arriving resides in nearness to him, to appear. The abode of man contains and preserves the advent of what belongs to man in his essence, unquote. The loss of the understanding of ethos as a region, an abode that shelters, protects, and bounds our dwelling, is not our main concern at the moment. Below, as we make our way through thinking, we will have the opportunity to take up the split between logos and mythos in Plato's work, and thereby consider how ethos came to represent the principal phenomena to be taken up as the distinct discipline of ethics. At this point, we can consider Heidegger's provocative claim that, quote, the tragedies of Sophocles provided such a comparison is at all permissible. The tragedies of Sophocles preserve the ethos in their sagas more primordially than Aristotle's lectures on ethics. Here we want to explore further the meaning of dwelling, so as to better understand how the particular dwelling of learning unfolds within the twofold play. If the meaning of learning comes forward as a kind of dwelling, it will present itself as the very freedom we encountered in the allegory. This freedom is the existence of the learner who dwells within the learning community. We have said that the dwelling of the sage does not automatically appear with the person, but rather the sage's dwelling is a coincidence of relations. This is another way of calling attention to dwelling as a fulfillment of the comportment of repose. This is akin to recognizing the turning as fulfilled with attunement. In the one moment, the singular person is drawn away from their habitual habitat, or their singularity, and placed within a network of relations. We call this network an abode because it allows for, quote, what pertains to man's essence, quote, unquote, to appear. The essence of Heraclitus as sage appears when the abode is complete, when the boundaries are drawn. Before that moment, which occurs with his invitation to the visitors to join him in the gods, Heraclitus' dwelling is of another sort. Before the arrival of the strangers, his dwelling is the modality of steadfast openness. This modality is the essence of freedom as a waiting, as a letting be. He dwells together with the gods, silently by the warmth of the fire. He stands upon the hearth, the nearness of the fire, awaiting his companions. His dwelling conjures up the modality of the liberated cave dweller who, after being spurned by his former companions, takes up a new location away and apart from the others, where he will await their arrival. His dwelling as sage then unfolds when the strangers arrive and complete the framing of the learning abode. Their arrival represents the opportunity for the sage to appear, for they alone, as confounded strangers, are able to receive the saying of the sage as a gift of teachability. If they receive this gift, they will be transported by the invitation and find themselves alongside Heraclitus upon the hearth where the gods appear. There, in that location, their presence as strangers, confounded, perplexed, anxious, and frustrated, will embody the not yet, the possibility of the learner, who is most capable to enter into poetic dialogue with the sage. And that's that for May 1st, 2004, read today, 10 years later, May 1st, 2014. So a couple of quick points. Again, I'm staying within the boundary of 9 minutes and 22 seconds, so I have 3 minutes left. That seems to be where the computer has been disconnecting from YouTube, which is how I'm recording these, and I think that 9 minutes is sufficient, especially if I want people to watch these videos. So anyway, a couple of those notes. First of all, there's this quotation, translation, Heidegger's translation of Ethos, anthropoi, daimon, for the fragment 119, is really important, right? So I want to emphasize that. He says it's usually translated, a person's character is his daimon. But he's emphasized, and if we go with that route, that's a traditional sort of understanding of ethics as an expression of the singular person. And I talked about this a couple days ago when I was reading from the Drew University campus on Monday, this past Monday, the 28th of April. But Heidegger's saying, you know, we need to think of ethos as an abode or dwelling place. He says, the open region where we dwell. So we dwell within an ethos. And it's within that ethos that what he calls our essence arises. Now, what's also important in this, his explanation of his translation is this. He says, and it's in his emphasis, the abode of man the abode of man contains and preserves the advent of what belongs to man in his essence. The advent. Very important, because advent is the new arrival, or the coming, right? The coming forth. That's why we talk about the Advent, like the season of Advent in the Christian calendar is the season that leads up to Christmas. This is going to be a very important category, if you will, or concept that I'm going to draw on. The other thing I want to point out is that I talk about making our way later to the relationship between logos and mythos and Plato as a kind of a promise. And that's interesting because I never get there. I never go to that particular point. So that's something that I say that I never go to. And I'm going to leave it at that. And so stay tuned for more of the recordings coming up as I move forward in this discussion of Heraclitus, the legend recounted by Heidegger, and his translation of the fragment 119.